Hello Ratbags, it's Jade Plays Games. Welcome to the Fallout 76 final thoughts on the beta. The beta's finished a few days ago and I wanted to wait a little bit to compose myself and see if there was any more Fallout, do you get it? From social media on the creative side, see if any responses to Pete Hines and stuff like that. And you've seen my videos, I've spoken a lot about Fallout 76 over the last few months. I have swung from being ecstatically overhyped about it being a PvP game to being underwhelmed that it's not a PvP game, to being up and down about the actual current state of it as it is now. So what is Fallout 76 as it stands from the last beta and the hours that I put into the beta? What do I think it's going to be like when it launches in full game? And ultimately, should you buy Fallout 76? I'm going to have that answer for very select people. I'm going to give you the answer if you're a Fallout fan. I'm going to give you the answer if you're a survival fan. And I'm going to give you the answer if you're just a general gaming person, if that makes sense. So come with me as I talk about my experiences with Fallout 76. Okay, so I've gone on record and said this a few times and I absolutely got lampooned, but now everyone's saying it, it seems to be the fashion. But honestly, I'm not hate baiting. I'm going to do a separate video talking about hate bait, but it's true. Fallout 76 does look like quite an old game. It's not a deal breaker all the time. There are lots of games out there that don't necessarily have the great graphics. I play lots of them because I play a lot of early access indie titles. But it's true, when you get to a company as big as Bethesda and you're making these fantastic open world games, these huge, massive, just so many systems in it, so many NPCs, so many quests, so many items, you kind of come to expect that the graphics are going to start being on par with the worlds. Originally when they launched, it was fantastic, the graphics looked amazing, the environments, and we've seen what they can do with the remastered Skyrim on Xbox and PS4, how the environments look good. But that's pretty much where it stops with Bethesda games. Lighting can be improved, but it doesn't seem they can improve some of the most basic things like textures. And I've said this already, so I won't go on too much. But ultimately, it can affect people's enjoyment, particularly in the way they play the game, if there's not enough options. Recently, Bethesda have said they're going to add some extra options for PC users, but you know what, I'm a console player at heart, and none of the PC options that they're talking about are really going to affect console. So we kind of have to just get what we're given. There is no option to turn on ultra widescreen for us. There is no option to add extra frame rates, which they're not going to be doing also for PC. All these things are adding to the feeling that just Fallout 76 is an old game. It's being built on an old engine and it just doesn't really stand up to modern technology or the way things look in games. You expect games to maybe not always look like God of War or Red Dead Redemption. I'm not saying that for a minute. But there are games out there that are made at a fraction of the cost. Games like Ark, which sometimes look absolutely gorgeous running around the environment. Some of the character models in Ark Survival Evolved look amazing. Fallout 76 doesn't have that. It has a lot more items in it. It does have a lot more world building. Every single piece in that game in terms of like loot that you pick up, items, you know, thinking about cars, wardrobes, furniture. There are so many. I understand there's a lot more in Fallout 76, but it looks dated. A lot of it's not textured correctly, and it's not going to change or affect anything massively in the next 2 weeks. You know, we're not going to suddenly see a brand new game that is 2018 looking. It looks old, and the characters move old, and that's where it starts to matter. It starts to matter how the game plays. It's janky. Players move jankily, they don't move smoothly. Enemies move jankily, they don't move smoothly. And even the AI pathing is a bit hit and miss. AI tends to be at least intelligent enough that if you try gaming it, so if you jump on top of a car or you're in a high position where they can't get you, they kind of run away from you and then they'll sort of hide behind something until you maybe come out of your hiding spot. So that's an improvement, but I've still seen way too many AI just being abused or being able to get around it. So really high level creatures you're being able to take out easily and super quickly because the game is just old. It's just not necessarily that modern. We're talking also about the stash limits, and that's a big part, that's a big component that everyone's complaining about. The game is kind of meant to be paid sort of minimalist. You know, you're meant to bulk everything up, you're meant to go and sell that bulk to traders and vendors, you're meant to maybe only have 1 or 2 key weapons and items. That does go against everything you've ever known in a Skyrim, Bethesda, Fallout game. You know, you're used to holding everything. You've got armor sets for every occasion. Mothering Sunday, Easter, Christmas, you name it, you've got them sets. So the idea that you can't keep all this stuff because your stash limit is only 400, that's really shit as well. And people are saying it's like Destiny with the vault spaces. The thing is, indie games have cracked this. I can't understand why AAA publishers haven't. You play a game of Ark or Conan Exiles, you can carry as much as you want if you put the right points into your weight stats. You can have your inventories back at home in your bases absolutely filled. So this idea that Bethesda are trying to tackle a problem that no one else has managed to fix, or it seems to be costing developers too much money on servers, I call bullshit. Go and play Ark, go and play Conan Exiles, then come back to me and say we can't have more stash space if that's what people want. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mind there being a limited stash space. I think it makes you think about the game more in the survival aspect, but so many people are used to playing it as a Fallout game where you can loot and you can hoard stuff. I totally get that the stash space needs to be bigger. Either way, can't have the excuse that stash space is a huge massive problem that they can't fix. Go and talk to the wildcard devs, go and talk to Funcom. If two small independent developers like them can do it for their games, why can't Fallout 76 do it for theirs? So that's pretty much it for the gameplay technical side of things. I could go on a little bit more, but lots of them other small things were, I think, part of the beta, and I'm hoping they're going to be fixed. What happens if Fallout 76 isn't in a good state when it launches? Well, the hate bait train has been building for a while. It built as soon as it got announced, even before it announced, because all the gossip and rumours about it being a PvP online game. It went through that whole journey of people hating on it, Fallout fans hating on it, because it wasn't what they wanted. They wanted Fallout 5 or, something that just wasn't this. It's a bit unfair. I think what Fallout 76 is going to do well is for people who like multiplayer games, but maybe who like just co-op. That's what Fallout 76 really is. It is, their tagline is, it's Fallout with friends. And that's the best way to play it. Don't think of it as an online game where you're going to be griefing other people. Don't think of it as an online game where you're going to be like an MMO style and making friends and tribes and clans. At core, the way it all works, the way you can only have 4 people, clearly is meant to be just played with your friends. So what it does well in that respect is this. If this was a single player game or a local co-op game where you hosted the world yourself, you'd always have problems that other games have run into. You have problems with tethers or borders where players can't run a certain amount of area because they've got to stick close to the host player. You also run into the problem that when you log off, the server logs off as well, and so your friends can't carry on playing on your world. Other games get around this by renting their servers out, and so I feel that with this method it fixes that, and in a good way. That's one of its key strengths. If you want to play a good co-op game, if you love the idea of playing with your friends or your family, Fallout 76 is going to offer you something not many other games do. A huge massive open world where you don't have to worry about the servers being shut down, where you can always play with your friends if you want to. It's just about the size of them friends that people seem to either get upset with, or they're not seem to get what they want from it. And Fallout 76, I don't think it's going to change that. The idea that they're going to have private servers in the future is way down the line, as is mods and stuff like that as well. So it's a positive for me that you view it that way. If you view it that way, it's a positive. Of course, if you don't view it that way, if you're really looking forward to PvP, and PvP, by the way, has been installed in this game much more than people give it credit for. The fact that they've nerfed it so much, you can still see the systems, you can see the perk cards, you can see the way that just it was built. PvP was going to be much more of a focus in this game. Clearly, the feedback that they got from revealing stuff was very negative. You go and look at all the trailers, PvP all over the trailers, all over the Vortex stuff, and they dialed it down. And maybe that's a good thing because they're listening to fans, but it ends up making Fallout 76 just a bit of a no man's game. It's not a Fallout fanboy's wet dream, it's not a PvP psychopath's wet dream, it's literally just a game that you can play with friends. So that leads me to my next point. Is Fallout any good then? Is 76 good for you to play then, regardless of how you're going to play it? Are you going to play it on your own, solo, with your friends? Is it a good game to play? Well, there's 3 answers here. For a Fallout long-time fan, I still think this game is going to be good for you to play. Yes, it doesn't have NPCs. Yes, the world does feel really empty without it. Yes, it can get a bit tedious listening to holotapes and just reading lots of notes. But it's got everything else you've come to expect from a Fallout game. It's got loads of lore in the game, it's got loads of world building, it's got loads of locations to go and explore, it's got the armour, it's got the weapons, it's got all of that stuff that makes at least 70% of a Fallout game. I don't necessarily think story is that important to games anymore. As we've seen, if you go and check out the stats for how, you know, trophies or achievements, how many people have completed games like God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn, or even other games like Gears of War or Halo, you'll find the percentage of people that have actually finished campaigns is less than 50% in most of them cases. The idea that single player games are absolutely the king, I don't think it's necessarily true anymore. Now that comes up in another video, I'm not here just to dispute it, but it lends argument to this idea that you can have a game that isn't necessarily focused on story, it's more about what you can do in the world. And this is where it comes to it being maybe a good game for survival people. So it's an okay game to play if you're a Fallout fan. I wouldn't necessarily say buy it at full price. I wouldn't maybe necessarily say buy it when you've got so many other games out at the moment. Maybe you want to give it a little bit of time, see how it develops a little bit more. For survival fans, yes, I think this game is a must. I still don't think there's enough of these types of game on console. Lots of this stuff is on PC, but in terms of playing an open world game that you can go and survive and thrive with friends, looting, building, base building, grinding, I think it offers a lot that survival games currently lack. There is not a lot of story in survival games. There's not a lot of story in Ark or Conan, and even though there's no NPCs in Fallout 76, the amount of holotapes, the amount of notes, the story is there, and that's what everyone cries about when they play Ark and Conan. From that point of view, they want more story, and Fallout 76 gives you world building, it gives you lots of ways that you can go and enjoy and experience the world with more reasons than just looting. You have got a backstory, you're going to have missions, there will be a beginning and end, and there's so many quests, so many missions, and that is something that people really want a long term in survival games, in other games, but they've just never had it. So for a survival fan, I would say pick up Fallout 76. I'd say pick it up at launch. I'd say pick it up straight away. I don't think even Ark coming out with new DLC or Conan plans or any other game out there at the moment, maybe only The Forest on PS4, really gives a reason for you not to pick it up. And then we come to just the average Joe, the average gamer. Maybe you dabble in lots of games. You're not a hardcore survival fan. You're not necessarily a hardcore single player fan. Why are you going to buy this game? I think you're going to buy this game if you like games like Destiny for the social experience, if you even play Fortnite and hanging out with your friends and doing stuff, if you've got real core teams of people that you roll around with every night for the same game time, same people, then I think Fallout 76 is going to be a good buy for you. I still don't think it's probably worth buying at launch. I still think it's worth seeing how it plays out a little bit more, see what they add a little bit, and maybe grab it after Christmas in its first sale. So now I've said all that, you guys will be like, well, are you going to make content on it? Yeah, I am, because I've enjoyed my time with it, despite it being janky, despite it not being technically, you know, sound, despite borrowing heavily from other games and having no real unique ideas. I have really enjoyed the grind. Maybe it calls to me because I like survival games, or I used to. I've gone off from a little bit in the last sort of 18 months covering mostly just survival, but I like running around and seeing what kind of environments there are. I've discovered some really interesting looking places. I think that's what Fallout 76 does really well. There are some really fantastic looking biomes, there are really fantastic looking locations and dungeons, and clearing out these dungeons and places is for me interesting. I like doing that. That's not going to appeal to everyone. Fallout 76 doesn't just have enough originality in it though. It really doesn't have anything other than that co-op play. I think maybe that's it. That's probably the one true thing it's got right. Now obviously other games do co-op, but in terms of treating it as a co-op game where you've got a whole world to explore with no limitations on where you travel, it does that really well. But all the other systems, it just doesn't, it's not breaking the mould. It's not doing anything fantastically new. It's not showing us that gaming can be something different or unique, or maybe even really good. You know, if you can't do something unique, if you can't do something fresh, then why don't you try at least making sure what you're doing is like the best it can be? That's what I talk about YouTubers. People ask me for advice sometimes, and I tell them, you know, every video has been done out there on YouTube, every genre, every idea. If you can't think of a new idea or a new genre, then you know what, make sure your content is better, is quicker, is faster than other people. Make sure, you know, you're giving it a little bit of your own spin. And Fallout 76 just doesn't do that. It doesn't give its own spin. It borrows too heavily from older games, and it borrows too heavily from games around it trying to compete. All in all, it may end up leaving it with just a game that not many people are going to play long term. Not unless they really do develop it and put content into it. And I'm not talking about content drops every 2 months. I'm talking about content like every week. We've seen some of the challenges and the daily challenges that they've got in it. And yes, that is content in terms of new fresh missions. But I think Fallout 76 is going to need more than that. It's going to need evolving. In a way, it could take a leaf out of Fortnite's book in changing the map around a lot. Maybe there will be real huge nuclear apocalypse moments where the bombardment is so much that that map changes for good. Maybe there'll be earthquakes that split the ground apart and people will be able to run around new locations. These are the kind of changes that I'm thinking long term will make the map more interesting and make it an online service game, because that's what it's meant to be, an online service game. Now this is all pipe dreams. I don't think they're going to do this because nothing in the game is that original and I can't imagine them adding this type of content. So instead we're going to just get weekly missions that are tied to cosmetic items or earning extra loot. Maybe there'll be bonuses for like all being in a certain area at once for a weekly mission, and that content's okay, but it's still kind of rehashing a lot of what's already there. It's not going to keep people long term. So Fallout 76, not very good functional wise. It's janky, it's old, it's got a core loop that I enjoy playing, but I can't recommend it really for more than 1 out of 3 types of gamers. I can only really recommend it for survival gamers straight away. The other 2 groups, the Fallout long-time fans and for casual gamers that just like to play with friends, I would say just wait. I'm not going to steer off everyone. The hate train gathering around Fallout 76 is clearly going to new proportions now. People have seen the beta, seen how janky it is, seen the bugs and problems. But of course all YouTubers jump on the hate bait. And so many channels that I used to respect, I see it more and more clearly now. Every year there's got to be a game that suffers it. And it's definitely Fallout 76 this year. I don't think there's going to be another game. I thought Battlefield 5 was going to be that guy. But Fallout 76 is going to receive a huge amount of negativity. And it's only going to grow. I'm still going to carry on doing the content. Like I said, I enjoy it enough. I want to do some content. I don't know how long that content will last, but I can see me getting my teeth into it, showing you guys missions, maybe starting my own way of showing you some of the story. If the holotapes can be boring, if reading out notes can be boring, maybe I can come up with some inventive ways to get that story across to you. That's what I want to do long term with Fallout 76, and that's why I'm going to carry on doing content on it. So pick up Fallout 76 if you're a survival fan. Otherwise, wait until it goes on sale. I am Jade Plays Games. This has been my Fallout thoughts and opinions. Agree, disagree, come and tell me in the comments section down below. I'll be here for launch. When it goes live, I will be live also, showing you the Xbox One full gameplay of the game, maybe even PS4 as well. Until then, laters.